Hello dear students, welcome back to the biology online class. This video is the continuation of a previous chapter, that is plant kingdom. In the previous video, we have studied about the general characters of bryophytes and about the economic importances. Now let us move on to the next topic, types of bryophytes. So bryophytes mainly includes two types, liverworts and mosses. Coming to the first group, that is liverworts, they grow usually in moist, shady habitats. The plant body is thalloid. Thalloid means it is thallus. Here, like in algae, the plant body is called as a thallus, and the thallus is dorsiventral and closely attached to the substratum. So dorsiventrally means having two surfaces just like a leaf. So in liverworts, the members are mainly found in moist shady habitats. The plant body is thalloid and the thallus is dorsiventral, means having two surfaces just like a leaf, and this thallus is closely attached to the substratum. Okay, coming to the reproduction part, here asexual reproduction takes place either by fragmentation or by the formation of gemma. Okay, so asexual reproduction by the fragmentation or by the formation of gemma. So fragmentation means the thallus it breaks into several pieces, and each piece is called as fragment, and the process of reproduction is called as fragmentation, right? Whereas gemma means, so these are green multicellular asexual buds that develop in small receptacles on the thalli. So gemma cups are nothing but the small cup-like structures which are present on the surface of the thallus. Okay, and the gemma, they are separated from the parent body and later on germinate to form the new individuals. Okay, so gemma means these are the cup-like structures which are produced on the surface of the thallus, and they are detached from the plant body and germinates to form a new individuals. So these are about the asexual type of reproduction. Coming to the sexual type, sexual reproduction, it takes place by the fusion of male and female gametes. Okay, and the male and the female sex organs are produced on the same or the different thalli. So the sexual reproduction, it takes place by the fusion of gametes, and these gametes are produced from the sex organs, and the sex organs are produced either on the same plant or on the different plants. So after fertilization, that means after the fusion of male and female gamete, zygote is formed. This zygote develops into sporophyte. Okay, and the sporophyte, it is differentiated into three parts. Foot, it is the basal part, the middle part is seta, and the upper part is called as capsule. Once again I will repeat, after fusion of male and female gametes, a diploid structure is formed, and this structure is called as zygote, and this zygote later on develops into sporophyte, and the sporophyte consists of three parts. Basal part is called as foot, middle part is called as seta, and the terminal part is called as capsule. Okay. After meiosis, spores are produced within the capsule. So the terminal part of the sporophyte, nothing but the capsule, produces the spores on meiosis, and these spores germinate to form the gametophytes, because here in bryophytes the dominant phase, that means the main plant body, is a gametophyte. So after germination, spores produces the gametophytes. So in this picture you can see the gemma cups. So these are the gemma cups which are produced on the surface of the thallus, and they are attached to the thallus with the help of a stalk-like structure. Now after maturity, the gemma cups separated from the plant body and develops into new individual. Am I clear? Okay. So this is the life cycle of liverworts. So the liverworts, the main plant body is a gametophyte, and this gametophyte produces the sex organs. The male sex organ is called as antheridium and the female sex organ is called as archegonium. From the antheridium, sperms are produced, and from the archegonium, egg is produced, and this sperm and egg fuses to form a diploid structure called a zygote, and this zygote it forms the sporophyte, and the sporophyte it consists of three phases or three parts: fruit, seta and capsule, and on the capsule they produces the spores, and these spores on germination produces the gametophytes. Am I clear? Okay. Next, the second group under bryophyte is mosses. So here also the dominant stage of life cycle of moss is the gametophyte. Gamete producing phase is dominant here, and this moss consists of two stages: protonema stage and leafy stage. The protonema stage, it directly develops from the spore and it is creeping, green, branched and frequently filamentous. Okay, whereas the leafy stage, it develops from the secondary protonema and they consist of upright slender axis bearing spirally arranged leaves, and they are attached to the soil through multicellular and branched rhizoids, and this stage bears the sex organs. So in this way the moss consists of two stages: protonemal stages and leafy stage. Protonema stage, it directly develops from the spore, whereas the leafy stage, it directly develops from the secondary protonema. Okay. Now coming to the reproduction part, here in mosses, vegetative reproduction takes place either by the fragmentation or by the formation of buds in the secondary protonema. So vegetative reproduction by fragmentation or by budding, and sexual reproduction, it takes place by the fusion of gametes. Now after fertilization, that means after the fusion of gametes, zygote is formed, and this zygote develops into a sporophyte, and the sporophyte consists of three parts: fruit, seta and capsule, and the capsule produces the spores on meiosis, and these spores later on germinates to form the gametophytic plant body. Okay. So this is the life cycle of a typical moss where you can observe the mature gametophytic plant, and this gametophytic plant body produces the sex organs, the male sex organ and the female sex organ. Male sex organ is antheridium and the female sex organ is archegonium. From the antheridium, sperm is produced, and from the archegonium, egg is produced, and the egg and the sperm fuse together to form a diploid structure called a zygote, and this zygote later on produces the sporophyte, and the sporophyte consists of three parts: fruit, seta and capsule, and within the capsule spores are produced, and these spores on germination produces the gametophytic plant body. Understood? So these are about the life cycle of a typical moss. So hope you understood the class. Okay, we'll move on to the next group under plant kingdom, that is pteridophytes. Coming to the general characters, the pteridophyte members are found in cool, damp, shady places, and some flourish well in sandy soil conditions. That means some grow well in sandy soil. They are often called as first terrestrial plants to possess vascular tissues. That means the pteridophyte members possess vascular tissues, means xylem and phloem tissues are present here. But the bryophyte members lack vascular tissues. That means bryophytes, they do not possess xylem and phloem tissues. Okay, whereas the pteridophytes members possess phloem and xylem as vascular tissues. And in pteridophytes, the dominant phase is sporophyte, whereas in bryophytes, the main plant body is a gametophyte. Okay, whereas in pteridophytes, the main plant body is a sporophyte, and this sporophyte is differentiated into root, stem and leaves. And the leaves in pteridophytes are of two types. In some species like in Selaginella, the leaves are smaller in size and they are called as microphylls, whereas so these are the microphylls. These are the smaller leaves which are found in the Selaginella, whereas in ferns the leaves are larger in size and they are called as macrophylls. Here in this fern the leaf is larger, whereas in Selaginella leaf is smaller. So the leaves in pteridophytes are of two kinds: smaller leaves microphylls and the larger leaves macrophylls. Okay. Next, coming to the reproduction part, here as I said before, the main plant body is a sporophyte, and this sporophyte produces the sporangia, and the sporangia are arranged in a structure called sporophylls. So sporophylls are nothing but the leaf which produces the sporangia, okay, or which bears the sporangia, okay. And in some cases sporophylls form distinct structures called strobili or cones. Means during the reproduction process the spores produces the sporophyte produces the spores, okay, and these spores are produced within the sporangia. So sporangia is nothing but it is a spore containing structure. Am I clear? Now these sporangia are produced in a structure called sporophyll. Means sporophyll is a leaf which produces the sporangia, okay. And in some cases what happens is the sporophylls are clustered together to form a structure called cones. Okay, so the sporophylls are arranged in a group to form a cones or strobilus, singular, strobili plural. Now the sporangia, it produces the spores by meiosis, and the spores germinate to form the prothallus or the gametophytes. So spores on germination, it produces the gametophytic plants, okay. So this is the image of Selaginella plant where we can observe the strobili or strobilus. Strobilus means here the sporophylls, they are arranged in a group, they are arranged in a cluster, so that they are called as the clones, okay. So now the gametophyte, it produces the male and female sex organs called antheridium and archegonium respectively, and from the antheridium sperms are produced and from the archegonium egg is produced. Now after fertilization zygote is formed, and this zygote develops into a sporophyte, and the sporophyte, as I said before, it consists of three parts of foot, seta and capsule, and within the capsule they produces the spores, and spores on germination, it produces the gametophytic plant body, okay. So in pteridophytes the spores are of two types, homosporous and heterosporous. Means in some species the spores are of similar kinds, so they are called as homosporous, but in others the spores are of different types, they are called as heterosporous. Different kinds means in some species the spores are alike, they are similar, but in others the spores are of different types. Some spores are smaller and some spores are bigger in size. So the smaller spores are called as microspores, whereas the bigger spore is called as the macrospore or megaspore. Okay, and now this megaspore, it germinate to form the female gametophyte, whereas this smaller microspore germinates to form the male gametophyte. Understood? Now coming to the groups under pteridophytes, it includes two groups, horsetails and ferns. So once again I will repeat the reproduction process. So as I said before, this pteridophyte, it is a sporophytic plant body. The dominant phase is sporophyte, and the sporophyte produces the spores, and these spores on germination produces the gametophytic plant body, and gametophyte produces the sex organs, the male and the female sex organ. The male sex organ is called as antheridium, which produces the sperms, and the female sex organ is called as archegonium, which produces the egg. On fertilization, zygote is produced, and this zygote develops into the sporophytic plant body. But in pteridophytes, the spores are of two kinds. That means in some species the spores are similar, whereas in other species the spores are different. That means some spores are smaller in size and some spores are bigger in size. The smaller sized spores are called as microspores, which later on germinates to form the male gametophyte, whereas the bigger spores are called as the megaspores, which on germination produces the female gametophyte. Okay. So these are about the homosporous and heterosporous condition, and so you can see the life cycle of pteridophyte. So where the plant body is a diploid sporophyte, and this sporophyte, it produces the spores, and the spores produces the gametophytic plant body, and from the gametophytes gametes are produced, sperms and the egg. On fusion, zygote is produced, and this zygote later on forms the sporophyte. Okay. Yes. Now coming to the classes of pteridophytes. Pteridophyte includes four classes: Psilopsida, Lycopsida, Sphenopsida and Pteropsida. Example for Psilopsida is Xylotum. So this is the image of Xylotum. It is an example for class Psilopsida. And this is Lycopodium, which is an example for Lycopsida. And this is Equisetum, which is an example for class Sphenopsida. And Teres is an example for Pteropsida. So these are the four classes under pteridophytes. Now coming to the last part, that is economic importance. So here some members of the pteridophytes are used as a source of food. It means like other plants, pteridophytes constitute a good source of food to the animals. For example, sporocarps of Marsilia, it is a water fern, yield starch that is cooked and eaten by the certain tribal communities. Okay, second economic importance is they are used for medicinal purposes. For example, maidenhair, it's a member of a pteridophyte, which is used as a wash for bleeding, and lady fern, it is used for omitting of blood. Okay, in this way the members have medicinal properties. And the third point is they are used as soil binders. So by their growth, pteridophytes bind the soil even along the hill slopes. So the soil is protected from erosion. And the last economic importance is members are grown as ornamentals. That means ferns are grown as ornamental plants for their delicate and graceful leaves. So these are about the economic importances of pteridophytes. So that is about the today's topic. Thank you.